In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Good morning. If you couldn't tell, today we're considering the Advent theme of joy. There's a few hints that we were doing that. That this is a Christmas, Advent theme, there's really no doubt, right? There's a lot of songs that sing about joy around Christmas time. You got like Joy to the World, start off with that one. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. You could just go on, right? Clearly, the idea of joy pops up a lot this time of year, sometimes involuntarily as you go into the grocery store and you hear all the music all the time. You always hear songs of joy. But though the idea of joy is sung about a lot, what it means to be joyful is kind of a different matter. Because if I asked us, if I asked you, what, are you feeling joyful? Are you joyful today? I think I'm going to get a variety of different responses. Some people might say, you know what, life's going okay right now. I'm content, kind of happy. I love Christmas time. This is excellent. I would say I'm pretty joyful. Others might say, you know what, Christmas time is actually kind of hard. It's a hard time, and, things aren't going so great. Would I say I'm joyful? And I'm sure I'd get multiple different responses somewhere between those poles. And that's understandable responses. But what complicates the whole matter for us is that someone like the Apostle Paul has the audacity to tell us in Philippians 4, verse 4, that we're supposed to rejoice in the Lord always. I will say again, rejoice. You also have 1 Thessalonians 5:16, which says, rejoice always. It's pretty flat out there. That sounds nice, Paul. There's some nice platitudes, but do they have any substance? Because I think each and every one of us can think in our minds of certain examples where that just doesn't fit. When you're at a funeral, rejoice? Got in a car accident. Rejoice? You hurt a person you cared about. Rejoice? None of that sounds right. We feel like there's something wrong with Paul's exhortation here. Because, sometimes we're joyful, and sometimes we're not joyful. And other times we absolutely should not be joyful. But as usual, I'm content playing checkers while Paul's playing chess like a grandmaster here. Because Paul is, in fact, 100% correct in calling us to rejoice always, to have joy always. See, the problem I find with myself and my thinking is so often I see joy and happiness as being the same thing. I don't know if you can sympathize with that. I mean, there is some crossover. But for the Christian, joy and happiness are not the same thing. They are not. There is a distinct difference between joy and happiness. And for the Christian, happiness is an emotion. It's a very good emotion. It's a very good emotion. But that ebbs and flows throughout your life. You feel some sort of contentment that makes you smile. You laugh. You feel the simple joys of, being with family. Happiness is a real good thing. It's a real good thing. But happiness, it fluctuates. There are times when you are happy, and there are times when you are not happy. When you attend a funeral, that is not a happy time. When you get into a car accident, that isn't something I'd say is, I'm real happy about this. When you hurt somebody whom you love, you should not have this contentment that makes you smile. In fact, when things are truly bad, it's truly wrong to be happy. For there's a time to laugh and there's a time to cry, and we need to experience both of those. What we must understand is this. The Apostle Paul, he does not say, be happy always. No, rather he says, rejoice in the Lord always. For the Christian, there's this fundamental distinction between this emotion of happiness and this thing we call joy. And our Advent theme is joy. So if joy is not happiness, then what is it? Then what is it? Well, if you have a Bible, I would ask you to turn to 1 Samuel, chapters 1 and chapters 2. We're going to look at some things in both those chapters. 1 Samuel, chapters 1 and chapters 2. Today we're going to be considering a story that's not a usual Christmas story, but who cares? We're going to be considering the story of Hannah. The story of Hannah. Because in the story of Hannah, I think we start to get an idea of what this joy thing is. In fact, in her story, we see actually really clearly the distinction between happiness and joy. Happiness is not a bad thing. Happiness is a real good thing. But there's a distinction to be made. So if you're there, we see in 1 Samuel chapter 1, look into just verse 1, this is where Hannah's story begins. And in verse 1, we read this. There was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephrathite. He had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other, Peninnah. Now, Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. The author has told us what we need to know here. Just as a reminder, not having kids in ancient times was a matter of deep shame. And specifically, if a woman was barren, she would be going through some deep heart-level pain. Same thing happens today as well. Because a lot of things would be going through her mind, whether rightly or wrongly. She would be feeling that she is inadequate. She'd be feeling that she is useless in some way. And she would have always confronting her the deep disappointment of never being able to feel the happiness of being a mother. Whether rightly or wrongly, these things would be going through Hannah's mind. That is Hannah's lot. And we don't know much about Hannah, but we're told the main thing that, whether rightly or wrongly, is making up her identity at this point, that she is childless. She's barren. So we go to verse 3. Now this man, that is Elkanah, her husband, he used to go up year by year from his city to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion, because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. And her rival used to provoke her grievously, to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. And as often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore, Hannah wept and would not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? And if you can't feel the emotions of that, I don't know what's wrong with you. There's a lot of layers going on there, you know? And a lot of pains. I mean, firstly, you've got Elkanah. He's kind of a dolt a little bit. I mean, his choice of polygamy, he doesn't even realize that his choice of polygamy has set up a pretty toxic situation for his two wives here. But he's also kind of sweet, right? Can't you feel like he's a little sweet there? Loving Hannah, who's in pain. Even though she's childless, it's like, anyway, there's something there. We also see Peninnah, who is his wife that's fully satisfied with children, and yet clearly she's jealous of Elkanah's love for Hannah. You know, because again, he's a little bit of a brick. He doesn't see how he's setting up his two wives for this kind of hostility there. So, I mean, obviously Peninnah is viewing this. She doesn't like that. And she's rightly aggrieved. But notice how she deals with her pain. She viciously takes out her pain on Hannah. It's like she's compensating. You can feel it right in the story. She's compensating for her pain by pointing out the inadequacies in Hannah. I've got children, Hannah. You don't. She's gloating over. Clearly, she's flaunting the fact that she has many children. Compensating. That she is a mother, not Hannah. That she has value, not Hannah. And of course, we have Hannah here. Not only is she confronted every single day with this gut-level, heart-level pain of not having children, but she doesn't even have the dignity of being able just to suffer in peace. No, every time she gets provoked again and again. She can't avoid this fact. Because Peninnah ain't going to let her. But unlike Peninnah, who was dealing with some deep-level pain, what does Hannah choose to do with her pain? She takes her pain to God. We see in verse 10. We see this content of this prayer that she kind of raises up. It says, she was deeply distressed, and she prayed to the Lord, and she wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow, and she said, O Yahweh of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I'll give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. And while she's, pouring out her soul, Eli, who's priest at the time there, he sees her and he takes her to be a drunk person because that's how much she's grieving there. In fact, it goes on. Verse 12. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart. Only her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. You could just feel that was going on there, right? Therefore, Eli took her to be a drunken woman. And Eli said to her, how long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. It's like, Hannah can't even get a break, right? She can't even pray in peace. It's kind of crazy. But then Hannah answered, no, my Lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. Eli, a little bit rebuked there, answers, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him. And she said, Let your servant find favor in your eyes. Then the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. And then eventually, she's going to conceive, and she's going to give birth to Samuel, who will be one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. And her face is no longer sad. And how can that story not make you happy there? Just a little bit, right? But I'm bringing this up for a reason. I'm bringing all this up for a reason. And the reason is this. Is Hannah happy? Before she talks to Eli, as she's wrestling with her barrenness, is Hannah a happy person? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. No, she is not happy. She's not happy at all. I mean, she describes herself as a woman troubled in spirit, a person who's speaking out of great anxiety and vexation. She's clearly and rightfully unhappy. It's only after Eli's words that her face becomes no longer sad, and happiness can take hold. You can see right in there, the ebb and the flow of happiness there. Happiness comes, happiness goes. Happiness goes, happiness comes. It's something it's got an ebb and flow to it. But here's the real twist that I think is going on in this story, and that I think is apparent here. Throughout all the sadness and the happiness that defined Hannah's life, through it all, I believe Hannah had joy. Hannah had joy. If you skip ahead to chapter 2, we see something that's pretty interesting. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, we are given a song, but it's actually a prayer given by Hannah. We're not told exactly when she spoke this prayer, but it was likely after she had given birth and had weaned Samuel, her child. But when she said this prayer is of less concern than what it reveals about the meditations of her heart. I'm just going to read through her prayer here and feel what Hannah found to be her rock and her salvation throughout this painful period of her life. I'm starting here, verse 1. And Hannah prayed and said, My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none besides you. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble bind on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. Yahweh kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and he raises up. Yahweh makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts up the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones. But the wicked shall be cut off in darkness, for not by might shall a man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. This is the prayer of Hannah. And it has great depth. And though she gives this prayer, she says this prayer to God after she has given birth to a child and she no longer has a sad face, I dare say that she had been developing this prayer in her heart for a long time. For a long time. This is a prayer of joy. It's not even a prayer of thanksgiving at this point. It's a prayer of joy where God is seen as the steady anchor of the soul that allows his people to remain constant throughout any season in life. Joy is not an emotion. Joy is a truth. The truth that God is with you. You know, we have these Advent themes we have considered thus far. You know, we had peace, we have hope, we've got joy, and there is a nuance between all of these, but in a very real sense for the Christian, these are all the same thing. These are all aspects of the same thing. They're synonyms for the same thing. You have joy because you have peace. You have joy because you have hope. You have hope because you have joy. You could just go on and on. These are aspects of the same truth. They're all communicating that fundamental blessing that you have in having God with you. I mean, look at the prayer. Where does Hannah's heart exult? It's in the Lord. Where is her horn? That is her strength. Where is her strength exalted? It's in the Lord. She rejoices in the salvation that her Lord provides. Throughout her prayer, God is seen as this steady rock for her soul. See, verse 3, there is none holy like the Lord, for there's none besides you. There is no rock like our God. The presence of God in Hannah's life provided her this constant support and companion that gave her peace and a disposition of soul that is defined by hope. Throughout her prayer, God is seen as the one who exalts the weak, the forgotten, the barren, those who are abandoned in an ash heap. God is seen as the one who lifts them up, places them on a seat of honor like nobility. For if the one who is with you is the God who owns the foundations of the earth, then you can expect to have a foundation of hope and of peace throughout any circumstance in life, even in the midst of sadness, even in the midst of loss, even in the midst of barrenness. It's almost as if hope is like an anchor that keeps you in stormy waters, right? And it's like the ship will still be tossed to and fro, right? But you're not going to be sent throughout all the ocean. It's like there's a stability. There's an anchor that's keeping you grounded. This joy, this disposition of soul, it defined Hannah's life, even in times of great unhappiness. For what was it that caused Hannah, when she was being provoked by Peninnah, what caused her to not retaliate against Peninnah? Why was Hannah's reaction so different than Peninnah's reaction to pain? Is that she had a God to whom she could pour out her pains before. A God who is with her throughout it all. Because Hannah could have chosen. Just like how Elkanah hurt Peninnah, so Peninnah was going to hurt Hannah. So Hannah could have chosen to hurt another innocent person and carrying on that endless cycle of pain, but she chose to end that endless cycle because Hannah was a woman who's defined by joy. She ended that endless cycle by turning to her rock of ages, to whom she could pour out her soul and entrust everything. Hannah was writing this song far before she gave it to us here. Hannah was writing this song as she was struggling through the intense periods of unhappiness. Joy was her ever-present companion because Yahweh was her ever-present companion. I'm saying a lot of things, I guess. I don't know. The point of what I'm trying to say is this. You, like Hannah, can have a joy that transcends your happiness. You can't fake how you're feeling. And you shouldn't. God never says you should fake it. You might feel happy. You might feel sad. You might feel apathetic. You might feel bored. You might feel tired. You might feel angry. Content. Do not fake how you're feeling. And when Paul says rejoice always, he's not saying put on a happy face no matter what. That's not what he's saying. That's not what joy means. No, he's calling us to embrace a truth. The truth that we have Jesus no matter what our circumstances are. That God is with us, like Emmanuel. Because God is with you, you're never alone. And in your highs and in your lows, you have access. You have access to the unchanging God, and thus joy can be your soul's foundation. You can have peace. You can have hope because you have God. So if, like Paul, you're in prison, you can sing. Not because you're happy, but because in God you have everything you need. And if you are barren and are struggling with a lack of self-worth and a soul-level pain, you can process your pain properly because God is with you every present moment. He's that ever-present foundation that will lift you up and hold you fast. He'll take your soul out of the ash heap and sit you in a seat of honor. Joy is not an emotion. In many ways, joy is actually God. He's the one that makes you have joy. And because joy is not an emotion, you as a Christian, you can choose joy, even in deep unhappiness. Now, that's not easy, right? Because when we're in the throes of pain or whatever we find ourselves in, it is easy to be consumed by it. It's easy to be consumed by it. Because just because God being with us is life-giving, that doesn't mean it's easy for us to choose life. Because if John's correct, each and every one of us love the darkness, and we hate the light. And so often, we want to find our soul's comfort in the darkness. You feel some, I don't know, like that's where you want to find it. Just like Peninnah. But we must choose joy. We must choose joy. And one thing that amazes me about Hannah's song here, which shows her choice and her struggle to embrace that joy, it's interesting that had an impact far beyond what Hannah could ever have realized. You know, most likely she had no idea that her prayer here would be recorded in the book of Samuel and would be read by billions of people, right? There's no way she would have expected that. But another thing she wouldn't have expected is that a teenage girl, 1,000 years afterwards, would read her song of joy and use it in her life. If you read the story of Mary and her Magnificat, she's mirroring that after Hannah's song. You can read that in Luke chapter 2. There's no mistake. Mary found in Hannah's song the vocabulary with which she could also process her amazement with the fact that she is going to have a child who's going to be the Savior of the world and all that sorrow and joy that entails. She processes that through Hannah's song. She had no idea. Hannah had no idea that her choice to embrace joy would have an impact with some people that she had no idea. And so with you. The simple fight for joy, you might have no idea whom that might impact. People you might not even know might see that and desire that same joy. So joy, it's not an emotion, it's a truth. It's an anchor for your soul that allows you to endure any circumstance, any emotion. Joy is the fact that God is with you. Are you with God? I don't know what this Christmas season might hold for you, whether it brings joy or happiness, but the story of Hannah shows us that no matter what lies ahead, God is with you. And thus, hope, peace, and joy can be your portion no matter what. Amen. Benediction comes from Hannah's song. My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none beside you. There is no rock like our God. Amen. Go in peace and joy.